Isang magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Welcoming you from GenSan to Bread of Life Sunday online streaming. Binabati ko rin po ang lahat ng sumusubaybay sa atin sa buong Pilipinas. Greeting every one of you watching outside the Philippines. We would like to request you to share the link to some of your friends or relatives who you think might be helped by our broadcast today. And again, would really appreciate if you could write down some comments along the way as you listen, as God would inspire you, share something so that we will really enjoy engaging with each and every one of you. Let me start by quoting Ernest Hemingway. He wrote, "There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow men. True nobility lies in being superior to your former self." I will be connecting that to our message today. We are looking at the series entitled The Way of the Warrior, coming from the book by Erwin Raphael McManus with the same title, The Way of the Warrior. We've been looking at the code of the warrior, and so far we have tackled 3 codes. The first one, the warrior fights only for peace, and most especially the inner peace that he needs in his life. Secondly, the warrior seeks to become invisible. Sort of humility. And thirdly, the warrior finds honor in service, having a servant's heart. And today we will look at the 4th code of the warrior, which is the warrior owns defeat. Inaari niya, tinatanggap niya ang pagkatalo. Chuck Colson, the former White House counsel, wrote, "When the frustration of my helplessness seemed greatest, I discovered God's grace was more than sufficient. And after my imprisonment, I could look back and see how God used my powerlessness for His purpose. What He has chosen for my most significant witness was not my triumphs or victories, but my defeat." Kumbaga, para kay Chuck Colson, ang pinakamahalaga na ginamit ng Lord para sa kanyang pag-witness ay yung kanyang kamalian. Yung kanyang pagkatalo. Yung kanyang pagkabaksak. Indeed, sometimes God uses our most tragic defeats in order for us to find Him and gain the true victory in life. Yung totoong tagumpay na hinahanap natin, minsan nakukuha natin sa gitna ng ating pagkatalo. Parang ironic and paradox, Natalo ka, pero panalo ka. Kasi yung iba, simili panalo sila, pero totoo lang, talo pa rin sila dahil mali mga principles sa buhay, maling mga character and attitudes nila sa kanilang buhay. Many years ago, if you are born before the 70s, ABC's entertainment or media, meron silang tinatawag na wide world of sports. Ito ay pinifeature nila once a week ang iba-ibang klaseng sports or great heroes of sports. And ito yung meron silang ginawang intro one time. And I'd like us to see this, very short intro na ginagamit ng ABC para i-announce nila yung ABC's Wide World of Sports. Let's watch.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sports.
Classic na classic yung intro na yan. Ako, inabot ko of course yan, Gaya ang ganda-ganda, di ba? Ang sinasabi po dyan, spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport. the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition. This is ABC's Wide World of Sports. The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. No? Thousands of times na of course pinlay yan also out na ng ABC Wide World of Sports have been showing and yung pinaka taong na kumbaga feature nila diyan na in portion ng agony of defeat, ang pangalan niya ay si Vinko Bogatas, former Yugoslavian. Of course, Slovenia na ngayon yon. Ski jumper na siya yung naging infamous or dapat famous, hindi naman infamous talaga. Siya yung tao doon, agony of defeat. Fast forward lang natin, yung from that feature na yon ng intro, let's watch a video clip when he was being interviewed after nangyari yung ilang beses, ilang thousands of times na napalabas yung ads na yon ng ABC Wide World of Sports.
Trained and conditioned himself to try to fly. He wasn't an aviator, wasn't even a pioneer. In fact, man had already walked on the moon 7 months earlier. But unlike Aldrin and Armstrong, this man had no spaceship. His launching pad was an amalgam of wood and metal. And unlike the supersonic Concorde, which had flown its maiden voyage the year before, this man wasn't out to reckon with speed. He was Vinko Bogataj, Yugoslavian ski jumper, and by virtue of his inability to get off the ground one day, he became a symbol of something so human to which we can all relate, the agony of defeat.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
This vintage footage from early 1970 is not the signature millions associate with that famous line. No, instead, it is this unfortunate Slovenia. And to learn his story, we must go to Oberstdorf, Germany, original home of the sport of ski flying, and site of that year's international competition. ABC's Wide World of Sports was there. Calling the action, Bud Palmer and Art Devlin. Art, a 4-time Olympic ski jumper himself, reflects on Vinko Bogataj's first jump at the international competition.
It was a gorgeous day, and all the nations brought their young kids there. And Yugoslavia did not have a strong jumping team. They're just getting started. And those poor kids had to jump on that big hill. And after the first round, and I saw young Vinko Bogataj jump, I said right then and there, this kid is nothing but an accident on the way to happen. And it sure happened.
Off too early. Holy cat, you see the wind on the tip of those skis? There he goes! Oh, that's a tough one, let me tell you. This is a dangerous hill.
Complicating the situation for the competitors, the weather. The winds increased. The in-run became icier, forcing event officials to shorten the jump and avoid disaster. The stage was set for Vinko's final leap.
The youngster is inexperienced. He fell on his first jump. A lot of speed in that track. Look out! Look at him go! Oh! Oh, baby. What a terrible fall.
Naturally, we tried to report right away what happened to someone, and the report we got was that he wanted to go back up and take another jump. He didn't think he was hurt. But the docs had no part of that, and they took him in the meat wagon down to the hospital, which was probably 10 miles away, and he called back and told everybody he was fine and he'd be back again.
But how could he return after a spill like that? For all who saw it, this fall represented the truest definition of the agony of defeat.
We were shocked. We were screaming in the truck. My gosh, did you see that? Oh my gosh, oh my, oh. And we were concerned, and we watched him be carried away in the snow. After our initial shock, it didn't take us long to want to have that disaster become the agony of defeat.
When Vinko took the fall in 1970, we were still using an opening comprised of film shots of stylized athletes portraying the different types of motions in their events. And I decided to go into the tape room one time and match the shots that were on the stylized tape with real action shots taken from real shows from the ABC Sports Library. When you think of the thrill of victory and agony of defeat, there's only one shot now that comes to mind in everybody's mind, which is obviously Vinko Bogataj.
Although Vinco's crash became a fixture of the Wide World Open and symbolic of the show for millions, there did come a point when a change was discussed.
I felt that perhaps maybe we were being exploitive in showing that spill week after week after week, and that maybe we ought to remove Vinco from the billboard. And I raised that possibility at a Wide World of Sports meeting, and I was figuratively met with a chorus of boos from everybody in the meeting.
How could you delete someone that had become so popular? At the Wide World of Sports 20th anniversary, he received a standing ovation in a room filled with athletes such as Peggy Fleming and Muhammad Ali.
When I was told that I was being invited to ABC's Wide World of Sports 20th anniversary, I knew that I would not be invited if I weren't popular. But when I arrived and saw how many great athletes were there and how well they greeted me, well, I had never expected such a reaction. I was shocked.
He had this grin on his face like you just wouldn't believe. He couldn't believe it. And Muhammad Ali was one of the first to get Vinco's autograph.
I am very glad that even though I was never an Olympic or world champion, because of Wide World of Sports, I am remembered by so many.
Over the past quarter century, there have been inevitable changes. Our presidents, popular culture, and even here at Wide World of Sports. But through it all, there has been and always will be Vinco.
Oh, baby. What a terrible fall.
Ouch, babe. Brent, I can't think of another athlete who is more popular here in the U.S. than in his own country. Is Vinco still involved in ski jumping back home?
Oh, not really. He helps out with some local ski jumping competitions, but Vinco is now 48 years old. He spends much of his spare time landscape painting. But Robin, he too wonders about his fame in this country.
Yeah, he will forever be linked to this show. All right, Brent, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Grabe, no? Talagang naging ski instructor siya, hindi naman siya naging professional na player, pero makita mo yung spirit of athleticism sa kanya. Yung time na, 'di ba, nung nag-fail siya, no? At sabi niya, I wanna do it again. Actually, ang problema niya, hindi niya pwedeng gawin kasi 3 times lang naman pwedeng do sa ski na competition na yon, ano. But anyway, during the interview, no, kung narinig niyo mabuti, sabi, I am very glad that even though I was never an Olympic world champion, because of worldwide of sports, I am remembered by so many. Kaya gulat na gulat siya na naimbita, di ba, sa 20th anniversary celebration ng Wide World of Sports, no, in 1981. Siya, kumbaga, daming nagpalakpak sa kanya at ang unang-una nag-autograph pa sa kanya ay si Muhammad Ali. So it was something special na hindi siya naging famous in the sense dahil of a victory. He became famous because of a defeat, no? So, ang ginagawa na lang niya, after nung defeat na yon, di naman siya naging champion talaga, tumutulong na lang siya sa mga malilit na competition sa kanyang bansa. And then later on, spending time in landscape painting. He was famous for the fall. Hindi siya famous dahil sa kanyang victory, dahil sa kanyang defeat actually. Pero there's an other side nung yung portion na yun, no. Ang nakita lang natin sa palabas yung parang wala, nag-fail siya, mali siya. Pero dahil nga part nga 'di ba nung video nag-i-snow doon, so by the time na si Vinco was ready for the third jump, yung snow lalong naging heavy. Midway down the ramp, Vinco realized that the conditions had made the ramp too fast, masyado siyang mabilis. So he attempted to lower his center of gravity and stop his jump, but instead lost his balance completely. Yun yung pinakita na agony of defeat. But what viewers didn't know is that Vinco chose to fall rather than finish the jump. Why? As he explained later, the jump surface had become too fast. Masyado na siyang mabilis. And midway nga doon sa ramp, realize na kung kukumpletuhin niya yung jump, lalampas siya doon sa slope, mapupunta siya doon sa level ground, delikadong pagbaksak niya doon, baka maging fatal. Kaya talagang nagpabaksak na lang siya. Surprisingly, he suffered no more than a headache from the tumble. Kaya yung writer nitong portion na to sabi, to change one's course in life can be a dramatic and sometimes painful undertaking, but change is better than a fatal landing at the end. No? May choice, naging choice si Vinco na itutuloy ba niya yun? Delikado. Ang nakita lang natin sa kanyang storya, sa kanyang buhay, yung agony of defeat. Hindi natin nakita that he made the choice pala during that time. No? Na sige lang, di ba, bumagsak na siya kaysa mamatay siya. No? So, when we go back to the book, The Way of the Warrior, itong portion ng code na to, sinimulan ni Erwin McManus with this statement. Let's look at this. The warrior knows that honor is not found in the victory. No, kagaya ni Vinco, naging famous. Not because of victory. Honor is found in the nobility of the battle. If the battle is not worthy of the warrior's life, there is no honor in its victory. In the same way, the warrior knows there is no dishonor in defeat. Hindi nakakaya ang pagkatalo. Failure and defeat are not the same. To fear defeat is to surrender victory. There is only a good fight and a good death for the one whose life is given to the noble. The warrior never claims victory for themselves, but only for others. In the same way, the warrior never gives blame for defeat, but owns it for themselves. The warrior owns defeat, and therefore defeat never owns the warrior. The warrior who lives and dies with honor enters eternity undefeated. Grabe, that's the whole concept of what we're gonna talk about. No? Yung inaako niya yung kanyang pagkatalo. Tinatanggap niya yung pagkatalo without blaming others. Accepting the defeat. Tinatanggap niya, ako yung may mali, ako yung nagkulang. No? Kaya ako natalo. No? Continuing, Erwin wrote, the ancient samurai understood that even in defeat, there was an honorable death. For if you never lose your honor, you cannot die in defeat. Pagka hindi nawala yung honor na yun, yung nobility na yun, yung dignity na yun, you will not die in defeat. Both in life and in death, the warrior never relinquishes their power. They do not blame nor abdicate or relinquish responsibility. This is the life they have chosen. This is the path that called them forward. There is only defeat if you betray yourself and forsake your calling. The warrior's legend is that they cannot be defeated. Hindi ibig sabihin hindi talaga sila natalo, except probably si Musashi, hindi talaga natalo sa labanan. No? Pero yung klase ng pagkatalo na hindi mo iniwan yung nobility and dignity, kaya in the midst of defeat and even death, there's still nobility. Wendell M. Phillips, an American abolitionist, orator, attorney, wrote, what is defeat? Nothing but education. Nothing but the first step to something better. Yun ang magandang pananaw ng defeat. Hindi yung pagdatalo, give up. Defeat, sige lang, ma-educate ka, natuto ka, you learn something from it, and then you aspire to win the next time. The warrior knows they are most powerful when they take ownership for everything entrusted to them. Yet they claim ownership over nothing. Parang paradox and ironic itong statement na to ni Erwin. Tinatanggap niya kung ano yung binigay sa kanya. The warrior takes complete responsibility while never holding tightly to anything. They take full responsibility without ever needing any praise. In this way, the warrior owns both everything and nothing. Because the warrior lives with open hands, nothing can be taken from them. The warrior is free from all things and therefore is free to enjoy all things. Everything is borrowed. Even those things that we consider our possessions will one day belong to someone else or perhaps to no one at all. That's why in most cases the concept of ownership is an illusion. Look at this statement. It is preoccupation with possessions more than anything else that prevents us from living freely and nobly. Yung masyado tayong hatak ng possession, masyado tayong hatak ng pag-aari ng isang bagay, masyado natin hawakan mabuti, kaya yun na nakakasira sa atin. That's why Paul, the Apostle Paul paradoxically wrote statements that would include this in 2 Corinthians 6:12. Among the dami niyang parang paradoxical statements, pagdating ng verse 10, itong sinulat niya, as grieving yet rejoicing, as poor yet enriching many, as having nothing yet possessing everything. Paul was able to live in that paradox, in that irony na grieving pero rejoicing. Parang pareho ko niyang alam yun. Naiintindihan niya yung bagay na yun. Bakit hindi siya napupunta sa isang extreme? Erwin McManus continued. Let's look at this. Ownership is not about possession. It's about responsibility. What you own matters far less than what you take ownership for. What you take responsibility for is far more important than what you think you own. Ang ganda. That's why in the book of Acts, the writer Luke, shared about what's happening with the early church. In chapter 4, verse 32, he wrote, all the believers were in one heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. Yun yung concept ng church in the early days. Yun yung concept ng totoong fellowship, sharing, cooperating, everyone's need is being taken care of. Natutulungan ng bawat isa. Luke chapter 3, verse 11, John the Baptist, shared this, may mga tinanong sa kanya, ang sagot niya, anyone who has two shirts should share with one who has none. And anyone who has food should do the same. That's why riches do not consist in the possession of treasures, but in the use made of them. That's why ang warrior is responsible doon sa kung anumang pagmay-ari meron siya. That's why even ini-include niya ang pag-aari, yung defeat. That's why yung paghawak niya sa mga bagay, loosely, kaya hindi siya nakokontrol ng mga bagay na yon. Lee Atwater, there's a story, he wanted to reach two goals before he was 40 years old. One is to manage a winning presidential candidate or campaign and become the head of the Republican Party. And he accomplished both. The first by managing the 1988 Bush campaign, and the second when the president-elect asked him to become chairman of the National Republic Committee. Naabot niya yun. During a speech at a fundraiser in 1990, Lee Atwater's goals changed. Suddenly unable to finish his speech due to uncontrollable shaking, he was taken to a hospital and was diagnosed with cancer. An egg-sized tumor was on his brain. Radiation killed it, but could do nothing for a second tumor. Grabe, bigla na bagong pananaw. Kasi before the age of 40, gusto niya ma-accomplish yung bagay. Actually, nagawa niya. May kaya na nagka-cancer. Ang karoon ng problema, yan na. Diyan na lalabas kung anong panangahawakan ng tao. Before his death on March 29, 1991, Atwater wrote about the 1980s as the decade of acquiring wealth, power, and prestige. Yun ang kanyang buhay eh. Acquire, possession, ano makuha niya. He had subscribed to it wholeheartedly. Pero later on sabi niya, but you can acquire all you want and still feel empty. What power wouldn't I trade for a little more time with my family? What price wouldn't I pay for an evening with my friends? Di ba? Nung magkasakit na, nung apektado ng pangangatawan, nung delikada ng buhay, bigla naisip, may mga bagay na mas importante kaysa sa wealth, prestige, and fame, and power. Family, relationship, no? And relationship with God, of course. Our vaunted ability to face life with equilibrium vanishes when we are eye to eye with our mortality. That inescapable time bomb came with our conception and will inevitably explode our plans and goals. Biglang may time bomb ka eh. That's why Scripture would say, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal. Treasure something. Lay up for yourselves treasures which cannot be stolen. That's why Luke chapter 12 verse 15 also says, a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. That's why yung way of the warrior, alam niya, yung ownership niya is connected to responsibility. One of the great traps on earth is to spend more of your time and energy trying to own things rather than owning your life. Yun ang pagkasulat ni Erwin. Your greatest stewardship is how you live the life you have been given. Yun ang stewardship of money, but also stewardship of life. It is a strange thing that we can own something and abandon ownership of ourselves. Without recognizing it, we all too often relinquish the ownership of our lives to the slavery of another. Napabayaan natin ang ating buhay, ang pag-handle, ang pagiging responsible sa ating buhay, at tayo ay naging alipin ng ibang bagay. Kaya, ang tinuturo ni Erwin McManus, ang isang tao, maging ang warrior, responsible sa kanyang buhay. If you have taken ownership of your life, you have come to know your own power. You don't stagger through life with a sense of powerlessness. Alam mo, kapag ka responsible ka, alam mo yung ownership of life mo. Na actually, kaloob ng Panginoon yan, then yung mga choices na gagawin mo, matatama. And you will be responsible for your future as well. And the choices that you're gonna make in life. There's a guy named Sean Stephenson who wrote, look at this, until you take ownership for your life, you will always be chasing happiness. Sean Stephenson is an American therapist, a self-help author, and motivational speaker. Grabe, no? Ano bang condition niya? He was born with osteogenesis, imperfecta. He stood just simply 3 feet tall. He had fragile bones and he used a wheelchair. But, yan ang sasabi niya, unless you take ownership of your life, hindi ka magiging masaya talaga. Habulin mo ng habulin ang happiness na maling sa maling paraan. Another statement na binigay ni Sean, I'm not afraid to make mistakes. That's why my life rocks. Kaya excited siya sa buhay. Kaya in spite of his situation, kapansanan, whatever, sabi mong parang defeat or whatever sa kanyang nangyari sa kanyang buhay, he rocks. Kumbaga excited siya, may dating ang kanyang buhay. Charlie Brown from the comic Peanuts was complaining because his team always lost their games. Lagi sila talo sa laro. And Lucy attempted to console him by saying, Remember, Charlie Brown, you learn more from your defeats than from your victories. Mas natututo ka sa mga defeats. Then Charlie Brown responded, then I must be the smartest person in the world because I have more defeats than victories. Adagdag ko na lang yung last statement na yan. Parang gano'n, di ba? Pero totoo naman na marami tayo natututukan sa mga defeats. If we're willing to learn. If we're willing to accept yung defeat na yon na pagkukulang natin at hindi tayo magbe-blame ng ibang tao. If we take responsibility for our defeats, then we learn. No? Matututo tayo sa ating buhay, no? Robert South wrote, no, an English churchman, defeat should never be a source of discouragement, but rather a fresh stimulus. No? This is the story of George Washington after suffering major defeats at Brandywine Creek and Germantown. He finds himself facing one of the worst winters in history during the rebellion nila, no, against the British Empire. He has 12,000 troops left to fight the entire British army, and winter's howling breath is breaking down his neck. He goes into a desolate, barren valley called at Valley Forge, ang tawag doon sa area na yun, to spend the winter and try to recuperate from the stinging defeats that the enemy has given him. Prior to that, ang dami nilang talo. There is no shelter for his men at Valley Forge. His army is naked. Hindi naman talaga na-combat, kundi talagang walang protection masyado sa winter and starving to death, as an old discouragement comes to sow his seeds of defeat. Na-discourage na si George Washington during that time. It looks like total defeat, and it appears that the new nation, the United States of America, will be annihilated by the bitter winter and the British Army. You talk about discouragement. Sobrang discouraged siya. But there is a man in the camp. His name, Baron von Steuben. He trains and shapes the army into a fighting force. He encourages them to get up and go on. They win major victory at Saratoga, then on to Yorktown. That's why after every discouragement, there is always a victory. If you believe, no? If you will not allow defeat to be a source of discouragement, but rather a fresh stimulus. Huh? Do you have any experiences like that? You have been discouraged by defeat, but you were able to rise up. No, share that. Or write some comments. So today, I'd like us to look at the first thing about a warrior owning the defeat. The first is the freedom of responsibility. Sigmund Freud, the Austrian neurologist, wrote, most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility. And most people are frightened of responsibility. No, yung ibang tao ayaw nila ng kalayaan dahil pagka may kalayaan, may responsibilidad yan . So we will look at the book of Genesis and look at the first story about taking responsibility in life, which, sad to say, Adam and Eve failed. In Genesis chapter 2 verses 8 and 9, the Bible wrote, or the writer wrote, now the Lord had planted the garden in the east, in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So Adam and Eve were placed in the middle of the garden, which tinatawag na paradise. May dalawang tree dun sa middle, na talagang na in-identify. So yun lang ang mga trees among all the trees there that were identified. And so dito makita natin yung infamous beginning of human story, the one tree that nurtured life and the one tree that would end life. Jumping to verse 15 to 17, the Lord God took the man and put him in the garden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. No, God gave Adam and Eve a choice. Actually, endless choices yun eh. No, there were an endless number of trees in the garden from which they were allowed to eat. As much as they want, as much as they desired. However, there was one tree that was forbidden. And because one was created free, this tree had to exist. Sinulat ni Erwin, without choice, there is no freedom. Without freedom, there is no choice. God instructed the first man and woman not to eat of this tree because this choice would lead to death. And so, kung titingnan natin, grabe yung warning ng Lord na ibinigay sa kanila na dapat na tinupad nila. Kaya lang, as we will know, hindi nila nagawa. Eleanor Roosevelt wrote, one's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices one makes. In the long run, we shape our lives and we shape ourselves. The process never ends until we die. And the choices we make are ultimately our responsibility. Before tackling the story of the responsibility that Adam and Eve should have had made, and so let's look at a video clip entitled Take Responsibility for Your Life. So ito, iba-ibang mga statements na bigay ng mga successful people reminding us to learn from our mistakes and so on and so forth. Let's just watch this video clip.
Life's hard, even without a damn pandemic. You realize that now, and you're going to enjoy your life a whole lot more later. Now, I know that's not how you planned it, but it is how it turned out and how it is.
The moment you are old enough to take the wheel, responsibility lies with you.
You want to be in the driver's seat of your own life, because if you're not, life will drive you. You must have some kind of vision for your life. Even if you don't know the plan, you have to have a direction in which you choose to go.
Your qualifications, your CV, are not your life.
I don't care how much money you make, you can't take it with you.
As you are responsible for your life. And if you're sitting around waiting on somebody to save you, to fix you, to even help you, you are wasting your time, because only you have the power to take responsibility to move your life forward. And the sooner you get that, the sooner your life gets into gear. Whenever you feel empty, you go inside yourself and you connect to the source, and you know that all things are possible. It does not matter where you come from. I have seen people come out of the desert, walk across the desert, being born in the most dire of circumstances. Doesn't matter what your mama did, whether she did or had a PhD or no D. What matters is now, this moment, and your willingness to see this moment for what it is, accept it, forgive the past, take responsibility, and move forward.
Ultimately, we all have to decide for ourselves what constitutes failure. But the world is quite eager to give you a set of criteria if you let it.
The only responsibility you all have is to hold fast to everything that you have lived right here. To not conform. To realize that when you're out there, you've done all this before, right in here.
You're striving to be your best self, so I want to urge you to take advantage of this opportunity. We all have a role to play in making this world a better place, and you chose to do something with real and necessary purpose. People all over the world are looking for purpose every single day, and you got one.
Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. The biggest choices begin and end with you.
Please, don't even bother asking. Don't bother telling the world you are ready. Show it. Do it.
There is no reason not to follow your heart.
So, you will notice doon sa video na yun, sinasabi, your life is your own responsibility. You're the only person who can move you forward. The only person who can move you forward is you. That's why never let any tough or difficult situation dampen your drive. Instead, start taking charge of your life. So, ganda, taking responsibility for your life. No? Hindi mo pwedeng iasa lang sa mga tao. Hindi mo pwedeng i-blame ang mga tao kapag kami nangyari sa iyo. And kaya after nung sa story, so shortly after, God came to them, no? And tinawag ng Lord, no, si Adam and Eve. No, in verse 10, chapter 3, he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked and so I hid myself. Tinawag si Adam, no, itong sabi niya, narinig ko yung boses mo, nagtago ako. And so, God asked, parang curious, most curious of questions probably, in verse 11, and he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? Parang kaya masabi natin most curious kasi syempre alam naman ng Lord eh. Alam naman ng Lord, kita naman ng Lord, alam naman, all-knowing, all-powerful, or seeing. Syempre alam ng Lord na kinain nila yon ng man and woman, yung forbidden fruit na yon. So kaya bakit niya tinanong? Because God is longing for a response. In verse 12, the man said, instead na akuin niya, ang sabi niya, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me from the tree and I ate it. Notice rather than taking responsibility for what he had done, kumaga inihulog na niya si Eva. No, kaya parang comedic ang response kasi parang una nga parang sinisipan niya ang Diyos yung babaeng nilagay mo kayo may kasalanan Okay na sana ako nag-iisa dito And so yung desisyon na yun nakasira pa sa pagbigay niyo sa akin, nakasira pa sa akin buhay. Parang ganoon yun sinasabi ni Adam No? And it is interesting to note that the man's first instinct was really to blame God. And for the consequences na kanyang choice yun. And then, binlame niya, of course, yung woman. Siya nagbigay sa akin And all I did was eat it. Kaya, Adam's entire response to God was one of abandonment of personal ownership and responsibility for his actions. Hindi niya inako yung kanyang responsibilidad dun sa kanyang ginawa. And many of us are like that. Many of us are doing things like that. Ayaw natin akuin yung mga choices na ginawa natin sa buhay. Adam played the victim and painted himself as the passive participant nung crisis na yun na actually kinreate niya. Kasi sinabihan naman siya ng Diyos. Hindi naman kay Eva sinabi na huwag mong kainin yung tree of knowledge of good and evil. So, alam niya kung ano yun. And so, it was his responsibility na dapat sinabi niya at alam naman ni Eva. Kasi, pag binasa istorya, alam niya hindi dapat kainin yun. Tom Brady, the American football quarterback na sikat ito sa NFL, he wrote, or he said, Too often in life, something happens and we blame other people for us not being happy or satisfied or fulfilled. So the point is, we all have choices. And we make the choice to accept people or situations or to not accept situations. Huwag ka naman nisi ng ibang tao. Ang problema natin, hindi natin akuin yung ating responsibilidad, kaya sisihin na lang natin. Ayaw natin mapahiya. Kahihiyan talaga naman yung ginawa eh. And so, no, yun ang sagot ni Adam. Tinanong naman ng Lord yung woman. Pagtanong sa kanya, ang sabi, then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this you have done?" No, again, parang hindi ba alam ng Diyos? Hindi, alam niya. E sumaawa ka na dun sa woman kasi at that time, wala na siyang iba masising tao. Umaga, naisip nga, tindi, ako pa ang sinisi. Siguro, kung nag-iisip siya, siguro, ang tindi, ako ang binala. Ako ang sinisi sa nangyari. And so, wala na siyang choice, kaya, no, sa verse 13, and the woman said, the serpent deceived me and I ate. Totoo naman, dineceive siya. But, she had a choice. She could have chosen to be responsible not to eat. Wala na lang siyang kasi naipit-ipit na sila eh. Ito talagang, ito na, no? Nag-start ng, kumbaga, makita natin yung masamang, kumbaga, sitwasyon na nito. She blamed the snake and which is, yung snake naman, yun ang exactly gusto niya mangyari. No? Darrell Henley had it all. A former All-American in college, star player for the NFL's Los Angeles Rams. He was making more money than he knew what to do with. Yun ang problema minsan. Mga athletes, ang daming nasirang athlete dahil biglang yaman, hindi responsible enough. Anyway, today, during the time ng writing nito, he languishes in the maximum security federal prison in Marion, Illinois. Darrell was convicted of drug trafficking and conspiracy to kill a federal judge and a former associate. He is serving a 41-year sentence. He'll get out at the age of 65. Henley admits he's made some pretty serious mistakes lang ang tawag niya. No? Yun ang problema ng tao eh. Pagkakamali, hindi kasalanan. But won't take full responsibility. Sabi nung writer na to, approximately 21% of NFL players have been charged with a serious crime. Henley argues that the message given to star athletes starting from high school and all through college is that they can get away with almost anything. Yun ang problema eh. Kasi ang tinuturo sa kanila, dahil magaling ka, sige, you can get away. No? Ano ka namin? Kokoberan ka namin. No? So, hindi natutong ng responsibility yung mga tao. Maraming athletes, ganyan, maraming nasira mga athletes. The athletes are given special treatment and develop a sense of entitlement. School authorities limit their punishment so that they can play in the big game. Beating up a security guard or drunken and destructive behavior are only mildly punished. Even the LA Rams paid his $2 million bond for drug trafficking before his murder attempt so he could keep playing football. That was during the time in the year 2000. Even before. So, kumbaga, ganong klase, So, siguro, marami naman na bago na sa sports, but marami kang makikita na many people have been destroyed. Why? Because they have not taken full responsibility. Look at this poster. I'd like to apply this to parenthood or in a family. If you always defend your children's mistake, one day you will hire a lawyer to defend their crime. Discipline is not child abuse. Kaya pag hindi natin dinisiplina yung mga anak natin, pinabayaan lang natin sila sa kalabuhay, one day, magkakakaso-kaso yan. Mag-hire ka pa ng lawyer. No, kaya, no, making our children responsible. Kaya mga maliit na mistakes, minsan kailangan inaano natin sila to take responsibility over that. Hindi natin kuberan. I-own nila yung pagkakamali. So, meron ba tayong mga experiences ganyan? Meron ba tayong ganyan na sa ating buhay na kaya tayo napahamak dahil we didn't take responsibility over our mistakes, our sins? Now, to verses 16 to 19, chapter 3, Genesis. To the woman, God said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbirth. In pain you will bring forth children. Yet your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Then to Adam he said, because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree about which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat from it, cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you will eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face you will eat bread, till you return to the ground, because from it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Ano yung concept na gusto ko paratingin at this point? Dahil the man and woman did not take responsibility for their sins. Ito na ang kasunod. Josiah Stamp wrote, it is easy to dodge or to get out of our responsibilities, but we cannot dodge the consequences of dodging our responsibilities. Pag hindi mo, kumbaga, in-own yung responsibility, tumakas ka dyan, yes, probably pwede ka makatakas. Kaya lang yung consequences. Yun na yung binasa natin na verses 16 to 19. Ito na yung consequences ng hindi nila pag-take ng responsibility by blaming each other. Yun na ang nangyari sa kanila. Erwin wrote, continuing, look at this. In one moment, humanity went from the fullness of life to mere existence. And the first symptoms of this change were shame and the birth of blame. Doon natin unang-una nakita yung blame, yung kahihiyan, not taking the responsibility. Ito na yung symptoms of existence. Sinulat ni Erwin, are visible through all human history and within the heart of every individual who has ever walked this earth. If humanity were fully alive, all we would know is a world filled with hope and joy and love and meaning. There will be expressions of generosity, compassion, and kindness. Kaya lang, because of the symptoms of existence, merely existing, itong evidence na makikita natin, disconnection, desperate loneliness, and meaninglessness. Yun ang mangyayari. Yun ang consequence ng pag hindi natin tinake yung ating responsibility sa buhay. To not know love is to merely exist. To not have faith or hope is to merely exist. To live without intention is a symptom that we have lost our lives and know only existence. That's why nag-i-exist na lang, kaya naging meaningless na ang buhay ng tao. Until makabalik sila sa Diyos. Until ma-reconnect ang tao sa Diyos. Kaya ang buhay niya naging just simply existing. Max Brooks, the son of comedy filmmaker Mel Brooks, who is also an actor and author, sinulat niya, you cannot blame anyone else. No one but yourself. You have to make your own choices and live every agonizing day with the consequences of those choices. Of course, hindi palaging negative ang consequences ng choice. Pag tama ang choice natin, of course, tama maging consequences niyan sa ating buhay. Kaya yun ang yun ang epekto pag maling choices na nangyari sa atin, grabe yung epekto ng nangyari sa tao. Dahil hindi nila would take the responsibility. Hubert H. Humphrey Jr., the American politician who became President of America, sinulat niya, to err is human. To blame someone else is politics. Di ba? Isn't that real? Isn't that true? Pagdating na sa politics, very few are taking the blame and responsibility. That's why dito, angat ang ang kitang-kita mo nobility ng Japanese at saka mga Korean politicians dito. I've seen, time and time again. No, of course, hindi lahat naman, ng mga politicians nila, but many of them are willing to resign and give up their positions. If something tragic happens, kahit hindi nga nila, sila mismo yung talagang may kasalanan sa actual na nangyari, like the Prime Minister of Korea. Nung lumubog ang isang barko at maraming mga batang namatay doon, nag-resign yung Prime Minister. No, kasi namatay mga bata. Hindi naman siya may kasalanan nung lumubog yung pero nag-resign na lang. Yun ang kagandahan minsan ng kanilang kultura. They will take ownership and responsibility for the tragedy. Yan ang masakit minsan sa atin mga Pilipino. Di ba? We try to pinpoint the blame. Sinong sisisihin natin? Sino magiging fall guy? Di ba? Kaya ang ganda ng sabi ni Jungpei, to blame someone else is politics. Hindi lahat ng politicians, of course, gumagawa niyan. Kaya lang, marami. That's why for Adam and Eve, this was not simply the beginning of blame actually, nor the end of taking responsibility. Ang ganda na sabi ni, sulat dito ni Erwin McManus, it was the end of love. Grabe. Hindi lang yung blame and being irresponsible, pati kinonekta niya sa love. If Adam loved Eve more than he loved himself, he never would have made this choice or placed blame on her. Dapat hindi niya, kasi instead na self-sacrifice ginawa niya, self-preservation. On the other hand, the woman had their opportunity for ownership as well. Nung nakita niya na si Adam watch or cower and relinquishing the responsibility for his choice, she should have taken the responsibility for handing him the food or the fruit. Pwede niya sinabi, Lord, I have listened to the wrong voice, I have made the wrong choice, ako nagbigay sa kanya. Kaya lang, hindi niya rin ginawa. Kaya, di ba? Kaya, daming problema ng mga mag-aasawa. Daming sitwasyon dahil when we don't take responsibility, when we blame one another, sa kung ano man ang nangyayari mali, kakaroon na epekto. Kaya, somebody wrote this, although jokingly, ito nakalagay, if you want to change the world, do it as a bachelor. Kumbaga, because after marriage, you cannot even change a TV channel. Di ba? Of course, hindi naman laging ganyan. Parang biro lang yan na hindi mo na magagawa dahil hawak ng asawa mo yung TV changer, channel. Listening to wife is like reading the terms of and conditions of website. You don't understand nothing, you understand nothing rather, and still you agree. Tingnan na, agree ka na lang. Chess is the only game in the world which reflects the status of the husband. The poor king can take only one step at a time, while the mighty queen can do whatever she likes. All men are brave. Horror movies don't scare them, but 5 missed calls from wife surely does. Of course, biro lang yan. Di lahat ng wife ganyan. Parang lang yan. Patawa lang. That's why, notice ang ganda nun, hindi lang blame lumabas and being irresponsible, parang yung pag-ibig din naapektuhan during that time. Imbis na self-sacrifice, naging self-preservation, ang nangyari doon. To blame others is an act of cowardice. We blame in an attempt to hide our shame, and that is not the way of the warrior. You cannot change what you do not take responsibility for. That's why Robert Bennett, an American politician, wrote, your life is the sum result of all the choices you make, both consciously and unconsciously. If you can control the process of choosing, you can take control of all aspects of your life. You can find the freedom that comes from being in charge of yourself. Grabe, no? Ang ganda pagka take charge of your life. No? Then you will be able to live life to the fullest. I'd like to show you a video clip from one of the movies of Sylvester Stallone. Gumanap siya, Rocky, di ba? Rocky Balboa. This was a time na, kasi after 30 years, bumalik siya out of retirement. Suot ulit ng gloves. Gusto yung lumaban ulit at labanan niya yung heavyweight champion during that time. And so, itong portion ng movie na to, ito yung nag-uusap sila ng anak niya. Tinawag siya ng anak niya, nag-uusap sila. And ang ganda-ganda ng inspiration na binigay niya sa anak niya. Let's watch this video clip.
Oh, look who's here. Anthony. Is this from your father? From the back.
Unbelievable. You're doing good. You're enjoying everything, all right? Excuse me. How you doing? Glad you come by.
Can I talk with you?
Sure.
Can we do it outside? So you're going through with this?
Yeah, I start training tomorrow.
Hey, Rob, I made some connections. I could make some money on this, endorsements.
Absolutely, do that.
Thank you, Rob.
Sure.
Okay.
So you nervous about the fight?
They're scared to death.
You don't look scared?
Well, you ain't supposed to.
Then you don't have to do it.
Yeah, well, I think I do.
You know, living with you, it hasn't been easy. People see me, but they think of you. Now with all this going on, this is gonna be worse than ever.
It don't have to be.
No, sure it does.
Why? You got a lot going on, kid.
What, my last name? That's the reason I got a decent job. That's the reason why people deal with me in the first place. Now I start to get a little ahead. I start to get a little something for myself, and this happens. Now I'm asking you as a favor not to go through with this, okay? This is only gonna end up bad for you, and it's gonna end up bad for me.
You think I'm hurting you?
Yeah, in a way you are.
It's the last thing I ever wanted to do.
I know that's not what you want to do, but that's just the way that it is. Don't you care what people think? Doesn't it bother you that people are making you out to be a joke and that I'm gonna be included in that? Do you think that's right? Do you?
You ain't gonna believe this. Well, you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up and say to your mother, this kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you every day. It was like a privilege. Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, now go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you wanna be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what. No matter what happens. You're my son, you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't gonna have a life. Don't forget to visit your mother.
Ang ganda ng inspiration ng movie na yun. Oh, lalo yung portion ng movie na yun ni Rocky Balboa. Dito yung anak niya nag-aano na talaga bang gusto mong gawin yan? Di ba parang gano'n eh. Kaya kasi ang nakita niya na kaya lang siya parang supposed to be tinatanggap ng mga tao dahil sa kanyang apelyido, Balboa. Kaya siya nakakuha ng decent job, pero anyway, takot siya na ang inaano niya na pag kami na masama nangyari sa'yo, may masama mangyari sa akin para tayo magiging katatawanan. And so dito na pinasok ni Rocky yung kanyang, nung maliit ka ganito, parang ba't maliit mo lang? Pero nung time na lumaki ka na, alam ko, you will take the world, but somewhere along the line, you change. You stop, ganda ng portion na to, being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you, you're no good. Kasi nakita at one time, nakita niya ni Rocky, yung kanyang anak na pinapagalitan, ginaganon lang, dinuduro-duro ng boss. No? And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame. Assuming, yung boss mo, ganun talaga siya, masama siya, hindi siya maayos, pero naghanap din siya ng may blame. Ganda, the world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. Yun ang buhay eh. Tatamaan ka ng buhay eh. Ang tanong kaya mo bang, kumbaga, akuin yung, na yun. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. If you know what you're worth, then go and get what you're worth. But you've got to be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers. Saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. Well, you're better than that. I'm always gonna love you no matter what happens. Ang ganda ng, kumbaga, yung approval ni Rocky, being a father, doon sa situation sa kanyang anak. Tanggapin pa rin kita kahit ano ka. Anak pa rin kita. Kaya lang tinuturo ko sa iyo, ang buhay, ito, dadaan ka sa mga suntok ng buhay. Kailangan mo matutuhan daanan yon at huwag kang magbe-blame. Because when you blame others for your failure, you become powerless to change the world around you. You begin to live life filled with fear, being paralyzed by uncertainty, and ang nagiging victim ka lang. Nagiging biktima tayo. No? Kaya, kailangan, may kapangyarihan, yun ang isang kapangyarihan na meron tayo, the power to choose. The future awaits those with the courage to create it. Never forget that when you own defeat, it can never own you. Steve Goodyear, a Scottish freelance outdoor writer, wrote, "An important decision I made was to resist playing the blame game. The day I realized that I am in charge of how I will approach problems in my life, that things will turn out better or worse because of me and nobody else. And that was the day I knew I would be a happier and healthier person. And that was the day I knew I could truly build a life that matters." No, yung pinanghawakan niya na responsibilidad niyang gumawa ng mga desisyon sa buhay at hindi i-resist niya yung blame game. Doon siya naging masaya. So, that's where freedom of responsibility is. But the second and last we will look at today is the no-fault policy. No, George Bernard Shaw wrote, "We are made wise not by the recollection of our past, but by the responsibility for our future." No? Kasi, yes, may nangyayari sa atin sa nakaraan. Sometimes we feel paralyzed by our past. We didn't choose. We find ourselves broken and even traumatized by the things that happen to us and not because of us. Maaring hindi ikaw talagang gumawa. Yung isang portion kanina, tayo may kagagawan kung bakit may pinili tayo mali, kaya nangyari yon. Ngayon, paano ang gagawin mo kapag hindi ikaw ang pumili at may nangyari sa'yo? From actions of neglect and abuse, or probably in the past violence and addiction, abandonment and mistreatment, those are legitimate reasons why people struggle to recreate themselves. Kasi we bear so many wounds that seem to make healing elusive, di ba? Parang hindi ka gumaling-galing dahil dun sa past na yon. So, we never discount the devastating effects of wounds that were given to us. Hindi tayo ang may kagagawan ng ginawa sa atin. Talagang, I'm not discounting that. Devastating yan for some. I don't know your experiences. Pero marami sa inyo, probably, meron kayong maraming dinaanan na sakit sa inyong buhay na hindi naman ikaw may kagagawan. So, anong gagawin mo pagdating doon? Erwin McManus beautifully wrote this: taking responsibility when something is your fault makes perfect sense. Dapat lang. But it is a tough pill to swallow that you need to take ownership over your circumstances even when they're not your fault. Here is the hard reality. Even if it is not your fault, it's still your responsibility. Abe. And you will see a little later, si Will Smith will talk about that. Though the wounding wasn't your fault, the healing is your responsibility. Though your past may not be your fault, your future is your responsibility. Though their choices were not your fault, your choices are your responsibility. So don't let those who are at fault keep their hold on your life by relinquishing your power to change and to be free of them. Huwag mong hayaan. Yes, hindi mo kasalanan na may ginawa ang mga taong gano'n, pero sa responsibilidad mo, tamang response. Because bitterness will eat your soul. It will let you, pag ginayaan mo yan, it will overpower you. Hatred traps the poison inside of you. Only love and forgiveness will allow you to have the power to move forward. Anger, bitterness, yari tayo dyan. That's why every person you have not forgiven, everything in the past that holds you has stolen a part of who you are. Parang hawak-hawakan nila. Maski hindi na sila physically andyan, pero hawakan nila. So let's watch a video clip by Will Smith. At kinumpare niya ang fault versus responsibility.
I was just having a debate with a friend of mine, and we got stuck on the difference between fault and responsibility. She kept talking about how something was somebody's fault. It's somebody's fault. And I was like, it don't matter whose fault it is that something is broken if it's your responsibility to fix it. For example, it's not somebody's fault if their father was an abusive alcoholic, but it's for damn sure their responsibility to figure out how they're going to deal with those traumas and try to make a life out of it. It's not your fault if your partner cheated and ruined your marriage, but it is for damn sure your responsibility to figure out how to take that pain and how to overcome that and build a happy life for yourself. Fault and responsibility do not go together. It sucks, but they don't. When something is somebody's fault, we want them to suffer. We want them punished. We want them to pay. And we want it to be their responsibility to fix it. But that's not how it works, especially when it's your heart. Your heart, your life, your happiness is your responsibility and your responsibility alone. As long as we're pointing the finger and stuck in whose fault something is, we're jammed and trapped into victim mode. When you're in victim mode, you are stuck in suffering. The road to power is in taking responsibility. Your heart, your life, Your happiness is your responsibility and your responsibility alone.
Hey, I want to thank y'all for your response to my IG story, the fault versus responsibility. It's been a lot of comments about that. There was one thing I wanted to add also. I wanted to say there that taking responsibility, accepting responsibility is not an admission of guilt. Like you're not admitting that you're at fault. Taking responsibility is a recognition of the power that you seize when you stop blaming people. It's not like you're letting somebody who wronged you off the hook. Like taking responsibility is an act of emotional self-defense. Taking responsibility is taking your power back.
Ang ganda rin ng pagkatakal ni Will Smith, ng distinguishing fault and responsibility, Parang parehas ni Erwin McManus. It really doesn't matter whose fault it is that something is broken. It is your responsibility to fix it. Fix mo yung sarili mo. Maaring hindi mo maayos yung buhay ng mga tao, pero yung response mo doon you have still a responsibility. Your responsibility to figure out how to take that pain and how to overcome that and build a happy life for yourself. You cannot prevent people from doing something to you. Hopefully, maiwasan mo. Kaya lang, kung hindi mo ma-prevent yun, hindi mo kasalanan yun, yung responsibility mo, paano ka mag-respond, paano ka mag-react doon. Hayaan mo bang people will always take control over your life? Which, with what they have done in the past, yun ang problema. Na-paralyze ang maraming tao sa nakaraan. As long as we're pointing the finger and stuck in whose fault something is, we're jammed and trapped into victim mode. Kaya, mananatili tayong magsasuffer. Taking responsibility is taking your power back. John F. Kennedy wrote, "Let us not seek to fix the blame for the past. Let us accept our responsibility for the future." Minsan, hindi mo na ma-fix sino ba talaga may kasalanan. Yung future na lang ayusin natin. Do you have any comments on that? Do you have any experience na gano'n, di ba? Sakit na, sabihin nyo lang, sulat nyo lang, yes, I had my own share of being taken advantage of, not my fault. Ako nagsuffer dahil sa kagagawa ng iba, but I have taken responsibility over it. Peter Black, an American author, consultant, speaker, wrote, "All we have to do to create the future is to change the nature of our conversations, to go from blame to ownership, and from bargaining to commitment, and from problem solving to possibility." Ayos. Pwedeng gumanda ang future mo. That's why, finally, sasabi lang ni Erwin McManus, the way of the warrior is a path toward ownership. Inaangkin mo. Talagang you own the responsibility. The warrior takes responsibility for their life, their actions, and the world around them. The warrior knows that they own nothing, so they can risk everything. Though the courage to face the challenge is the victory. The warrior is not afraid to be exposed by defeat. Look at this. Defeat does not diminish the heart of the warrior, for they do not fight for their own fame, but for the freedom of others. Yun ang ganda ng taking responsibility over your life. Kaya, if your practice in life is taking great risk, you are all too familiar with the impact of failure. Ironically, if failure is not an option, neither is taking risk. Failure is an inevitable ingredient of success. Gary Keller, an American entrepreneur, wrote, "Taking complete ownership of your outcomes by holding no one but yourself responsible for them is the most powerful thing you can do to drive your success." Connecting life to success. Kinento ni Erwin McManus, years ago, we at Mosaic had a massive breakdown at one of our events. The next day, all the leaders of all the teams met to assess the breakdown. I remember asking for clarification and asking what I thought was a pretty simple question. Who is responsible for this particular area where the breakdown happened? Yun lang ang tinanong niya. What happened is this. One by one, everyone in the room told me it was not their responsibility. It was a strange and surreal moment to be sitting in a room full of executives where apparently not one of them was responsible for the principal item on our agenda. Wala man lang umamin na responsable sila. So sabi niya, ang ganda ng ginawa niya dito. I paused for a moment, took a deep breath to think it over, and then gave everyone an assignment. Ang sabi niya ganito, I want you to go find the person responsible for this so I can hire them because they are the only person who should be in this room. Kaya, ang sinasabi ni Erwin, be responsible enough to take the responsibility of accepting whatever happened. Tinatanggap natin responsibilidad, inaako natin, ako yan, responsable ako dyan. That's why, in life, find the person who takes responsibility and you have found the person who has the power to bring change. Kaya, hanapin mo yung tao na yun. Yung umaako ng responsibilidad, being responsible lang na willing, hindi siya na pinapasa sa iba ang kasalanan, ang pagkakamali, poprotektahan ang sarili. Hindi aangat yun. Saka huwag mong kunin sa trabaho yun. Robert Ringer, an American entrepreneur, said, everything changed for the better when you take ownership of your own problems. To end with the story, two paraplegics were in the news many years ago. One was Kenneth Wright, a high school football star and later an avid wrestler, boxer, hunter, and skin diver. A broken neck sustained in a wrestling match in 1979 left him paralyzed from the chest down. He underwent therapy and his doctor were hopeful that one day he would be able to walk with the help of braces and crutches. But apparently, the former athlete could not reconcile himself to his physical disability. He prevailed upon two of his best friends to take him in his wheelchair to a wooded area where they left him alone with a 12-gauge shotgun. When they left, he held the shotgun to his abdomen and pulled the trigger. Kenneth Wright, 24, committed suicide. Parang in a sense, kasalanan din ng mga kasamahan niya. Bakit iniwan nila? Doon yung tao. Anyway, hindi na kayanan ni Kenneth. The second paraplegic in that news during the time was Jim McGowan. 30 years ago, at the age of 19, Jim was stabbed and left paralyzed from the middle of his chest down. The same thing. He is confined to a wheelchair. But he made the news when he made a successful parachute jump, landing on his target in the middle of Lake Wallenpaupack in the Poconos. News people learned a number of things about Jim. He lives alone, cooked his meals, washes clothes, and cleans his house. He drives himself in his specially equipped automobile. He has written 3 books, and he did the photograph of the country's first book on the history of wheelchair sports. That's why you will notice 2 men with handicaps. One chose life and the other did not. As Robert Frost wrote, 2 roads diverge in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Yung mahirap na road ang kinuha niya, and that made the difference. Can you relate to that? Have you made decisions in your life that made you responsible for it and it drove you to success? 2 paraplegics. One made the decision to live. One made the decision to die. One made being responsible na He was able to do something in spite of that disability. How about you? How about me? How do you respond to situations like that in your life, in my life? Let's pray. Oh God, we thank you for giving us the power of choice. The power, oh Lord God, to own the defeats and the mistakes and the failures in life. To being responsible for our life. Salamat po, Panginoon, O Lord God, na maaring meron kami mga sariling mga maling desisyon na ginawa sa aming mga buhay. That's why we're living, Lord God, with the consequences ng mga maling decisions namin sa aming buhay. Salamat, Lord, may kapatawaran ka sa mga nagawa namin sa mga nakaraan. At salamat din, O Lord God, that we still also have a choice sa mga nangyari sa aming buhay na kagagawa ng ibang tao. At napahama kami, O Lord God, dahil sa mga maling desisyon ng ibang tao. But we will also take responsibility and will make a choice, O Lord God, to be still in power over our lives, to be in control of our decisions. Lord God, Lord, that we will, Lord God, let go of those things in the past so that we can move on to the future. Salamat, Lord, by your Spirit and by your help, that we can really entrust your life. Salamat, Lord, na nandiyan ka, tutulong ka sa amin. Salamat sa mga principles na ito, Lord God, that, Lord God, na ikaw ultimately, O Lord God, ang siyang gabay sa aming mga buhay na magdadirect sa amin. Kung hahayaan ka namin, Lord God, to take control over our life. Lord, salamat na mga desisyon namin ay magbibigay kaluwalhatian sa iyo. Salamat ang mga desisyon namin, O Lord God, will be aligned to your will. Will align to your desires for our lives, O Lord God. Hindi kami mauna sa mga desisyon na dapat gawin sa aming buhay para hindi kami mapahamak, para hindi kami maging biktima lamang. Salamat, Panginoon, sa lahat ng ito. Salamat, Lord God, that we can really choose to follow you, Lord God, with our lives. Salamat sa lahat ng ito. At maging muli sa pagkakataon makapagbigay ng aming tithes, ng aming offering, O Lord God. Salamat, Lord God, that we can have a part, O Lord God, in extending your kingdom. Sa anumang sa paraan na ito, Lord God, makatulong kami para sa, Lord God, pag-usad ng iyong iglesia, Panginoon. Nasalamat, Lord, bahagi kami sa lahat ng ito. Muli, O Lord God, magpupuri kami at sumasamba sa iyo. Pagpalain mo bawat isa sa lahat ng aming gagawin sa linggong ito. Pupuri kami at nagpapasalamat sa ngalan ni Jesus. Amen at amen. Maraming salamat po sa pag-tune in nyo sa araw na to, sa ating broadcast, sa ating streaming, and nawa na gabayan ng Panginoon. Muli po, follow and like our Facebook page. If this is the first time you join us or you haven't liked and followed our Facebook page, please share this broadcast. Pagkatapos nito, pwede nyo ulit panoorin. At abangan po ninyo, ilalagay po natin to sa ating YouTube channel, Bread of Life GenSan. So if you have not subscribed, I request you, I encourage you to subscribe so you'll be able to watch our previous streaming. So salamat po, nawa na ang Diyos ay gumabay sa inyo at you will be able to take responsibility for your life, and God bless each and every one of you.